Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. I wanted to do a video about two of my favorite filmmakers slash directors, and that is the two Davids, David Lynch and David Cronenberg. So, anytime you get into a conversation with someone about, favorite films and David Lynch or David Cronenberg come up, they'll always say, "Do you like the other one?" Um, I think they tie them in because they're both weird filmmakers, and obviously they're both named David. So otherwise, I think a good chunk of what they put out is extremely different from one another, and I just want to touch upon that. And first, I'm going to show off some of the movies I own for each person, and just briefly describe the film. So let's start with Lynch. He is most known for Twin Peaks, which is a mystery horror TV show, which got 3 seasons and a prequel movie. Very, very good. One of my favorite TV series. He also did The Elephant Man, which is based off of John Merrick. That's his real. I don't think his real name was John. I want to say it was something else in real life, but based off the gentleman who had the deformity, who was in all the sideshows many, many years ago, and became sort of a case study for deformities. Um, so not really his. It wasn't really David Lynch's. It was his spin on it, but it wasn't. He didn't make it up. It was from a real story. Then we have Dune, which a lot of people hate, a lot of people like. I really enjoy this. It's a little long in the tooth in regards to how long the film is, but it's a cool sci-fi epic film. Again, something he directed, not wrote. It's based off of a book series. Now we're digging into the real Lynchian stuff. Mulholland Drive. It is about a woman who's trying to become, I believe, a singer or an actress. It's been a while since I watched this. I want to say a singer. And she gets wrapped up in this crazy world, and all these things start happening to her. There's a lot of subliminal messages and sort of shifting tones, things happening that mean other things. Then we have Lost Highway, which is sort of similar. It's about a guy who I think, if I remember correctly, was in prison and he gets out and now he does something and things are sort of closing in on him. Um, Again, been a while since I watched this. This just got a Blu-ray release, but David Lynch said that he was not supporting it because I guess they reached out to him, Kino Lorber, to try and get him to do like a certified, like that he was good, like good with the quality, but they didn't use the original negative. They used some kind of other version, and he wasn't happy with it, so he didn't sign on. So maybe eventually we'll get a David Lynch certified version on Blu-ray, but currently I just have the DVD. This is one of my favorites by him. It was good. It's a little hard to explain again. Lots of subliminal messages and just things that could mean something else or that you can look into. Lots of things with Lynch are sort of based on emotions, um, and symbolism again. And finally, another Lynch film that I really love, Blue Velvet. This one's a little more straightforward. It is a movie about Kyle MacLachlan, who's also in Twin Peaks, who lives in this little suburb and gets pulled into this murder mystery or kidnapping, really. And the main point of the movie is that even in like the suburbs, there's always something underneath the surface, evil happening with people and with families and with disreputable people. Even here, I live in the suburbs. There was recently a house of people selling drugs. There's people you see on the news who get arrested for child porn. So there's all types of stuff that you think like everything is, perfect out here. The trees are really nice and everyone has a nice lawn, but everyone's screwed up. And that's pretty much the gist of Blue Velvet. But it's quirky and got the weird Lynch charm as well. So now I'm going to just go over a few of Cronenberg's films that I really enjoy. Excuse me. One of my favorites, hands down, is Existenz. This also has a one, a single disc release. This one comes with three on one disc. The single disc release has, I recall, I want to say better audio, and this has better video, the compression, I think. So I just kept this one and never went for the single disc. This is a almost Matrix type movie where it's like a video game with virtual reality mixed with real life, and the characters don't know what's real and what isn't. Really interesting, good like science fiction-y horror. If you don't know Cronenberg, he does a lot of body horror where like people's body parts are opening up and things are coming out of them, or they're putting foreign objects into their bodies and their bodies are morphing and changing. So check out Existenz if you haven't seen. This one is great. A little cheesy in a way, but really, really good. And one of the other ones with some body horror that Cronenberg is known for, which is a remake, is The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, where Jeff Goldblum does a science experiment and he ends up changing into a man fly or fly man, and he's vomiting on his food and becoming really grotesque and really creepy looking. When I was a kid, this movie really creeped me out. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And finally, probably my favorite Cronenberg movie, along with Existenz. I'd say they're both up there. Videodrome. Videodrome has James Woods and Debbie Harry from Blondie. I love the case on this one. It's probably my favorite case. It's I guess a beta tape. Um, anyhow, um, James Woods owns like a TV station or runs a TV station, and he's trying to find new content, like really edgy, creepy porn and stuff. And they come across what they think is a snuff film channel, and he tries to track it down, and it gets really seedy and gross. Has some body horror, has some symbolism and things that you don't know what's real and what isn't. You kind of have to like make it your own and come to your own conclusions. Um, but this is one of my favorites. It's excellent. And finally, I will just show these off really quickly. Um, the thing with Cronenberg is he also does movies that aren't like his normal body horror. He sometimes pulls something out that's a little more of like based on reality or based on a real story, or even just a story that's a little strange, but not nearly as weird as something like Videodrome or Existenz or The Fly. So he did Cosmopolis with Robert Pattinson from Twilight. It's a great story about this millionaire who just drives around in his limo all day and makes different stops and doesn't really get out of his limo and sort of self-analyzing himself, and he's like an unhappy person even though he has everything. It's a really great movie, and to be honest with you, I never liked Robert Pattinson because of Twilight, but I have no problem with him playing Batman because this movie is that good and he can really act. Same thing with something like this, Eastern Promises. He did Eastern Promises and A History of Violence. Both great films, both starring Viggo Mortensen, and just not like something you would expect. This is a Russian mob movie, really good. And History of Violence is Viggo Mortensen's character is out of the mob, and they're chasing him down. So, but the films don't have anything to do with each other, but they have that similar kind of dark, edgy feeling, but very different from someone who would bring you something like these other body horror movies, where I feel like when Lynch does a movie or a show, he sort of can't help himself. Everything is very Lynchian, if you will, very weird and has all these weird tones, and you really have to look deep into things, talk to people online, and figure things out for yourself. The final Cronenberg movie I pulled out was A Dangerous Method, which is pretty good. It's based off of the relationship between Freud and Jung, and the famous psychologists, along with the woman who got in between them. That she was, I think, sleeping with both of them, and one of them, Freud, I believe, was married, and Jung was his protege. Really interesting movie, slow, intriguing, but again, nothing like what you would expect Cronenberg to do after he does things like this or Rabid or Shivers, which is another horror movie. So very different. People always compare them. I think the creepiness aspect is the only thing I would say maybe has a little bit of a similarity. Um, However, Cronenberg's creepiness is usually, besides Videodrome, is usually explained. It's usually a little more in your face. This is where we're going with it. This is what it means. It gets really weird and then moves on, but the story is still cohesive. I feel like with Lynch, he gives you, besides Twin Peaks, which I think his hands were tied in some extent. As I said, Dune wasn't really his, nor was The Elephant Man. But if you go into Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway, and what was the other one? Not really Blue Velvet, more Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway, Inland Empire. If you watch those films, you really have to think. And I think if you're not in the mood to sit down, really pay attention and really think about a movie while it's on, after it's on, analyze it, start picking it apart, and then going, oh, well, this could have meant that. And was how she was feeling. And that's how come this, in the movie, whatever, this happened. It's never really what it fully seems. They show you something, but that's not really what's happening. It's usually in the person's head or maybe an emotion, and this is how it's portraying itself in the film. I think Cronenberg is way more approachable in regards to his films. I think Lynch has a little bit more of an imagination in regards to the weirdness and the storytelling, but I'm not always in the mood for that. So if you were to say to me who I like better, I think Cronenberg, because I can rewatch Videodrome and The Fly and Existenz, and sometimes I can tune out a little bit and enjoy it. And I know that sounds kind of like what's the word? I can't think of the word, but I know it sounds like I'm kind of like going easy on. Oh well, I can like zone out, and I get that's not the point of a movie, but I just feel like they're more approachable. They're easier to take in, and sometimes I want that. Sometimes after a long day at work or the weekend hits and you're tired and it's late at night, you don't want to sit there and really take in this deep, heavy, weird, symbolic story and then have to eat it and try and digest it and make it make sense. I've read things about Lynch's movies, Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway, that definitely make sense, that people give their own interpretations and their own synopsis, and it's captivating. It's a great read, it's interesting, it's stories and characters that you're surprised someone even thought of something like this. But overall, I would edge out to Cronenberg just because sometimes I want that like weirdness sprinkled on, not shoved down my throat. So that's my 2 cents about Cronenberg versus Lynch. I love both of their movies. I think they're both excellent. I'm not saying Lynch is bad. Don't start going in the comments section and saying, you said Lynch sucks. He's the best thing since sliced bread. I know. I like David Lynch a lot. I like Cronenberg a lot. They're great. Anytime they both put out something new, I check it out. I even checked out what was really good. Lynch had done a semi-biographical film called The Straight Story or A Straight Story. It was about this farmer who drove all the way on his um, lawnmower to see his brother, who I think was dying of cancer in another state, but he had no way to get there because he was broke. Very interesting, but not Lynch's story. He just, you know, took the story, I think, and then made it. I don't think that was based off of a true story. Um, so I like that. I like when he takes true stories or things that aren't his and sort of adds his magic. When it's him and he goes all buck wild on it, like Inland Empire, eh, not my favorite film. Hard to take in. You watch it and it's just not there. I don't know. What do you guys think? Who do you like better? Do you think I'm completely off? Like I said, I appreciate both of these filmmakers' imaginations and stories and the things they bring to the table that get made. Where most people would probably explain these films and say, "I need to get money from Fox. Let me explain this," and then they'd be completely shot down. But at this point, with Lynch and Cronenberg, they seem to have made names for themselves, of course. So now they're able to do what they really want to do and not just what studios always want them to do. Let me know, guys, what you think. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.